So I get, oh, 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 dang! I put on the wrong shirt. Just gonna be a minute here. Halloween Kills 2021. Let's talk about it. All right, I try to keep these reviews to about 10 minutes. This one might go a little longer. I mean, we're talking about one of the iconic horror franchises of all time, and yeah, I kind of enjoy this stuff. So we're gonna go through a few things. So I'm gonna start by saying Halloween Kills is part two of a trilogy of films. The second part to this film is gonna be called Halloween Ends. It's gonna come out next year, Halloween season. A full reimagining of Michael Myers through the writing of Danny McBride, who kind of surprisingly is doing a pretty decent job, I think. And it basically ignores all the prior Halloween films except for Halloween 1 and carries on the heroine from that film, Laurie Strode, as played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who now far into her 50s or 60s, I guess, in this film. Is still coming to terms with the horrors of that night years ago when she was babysitting, and now growing into this heroine who's going to challenge and battle against the evil force that is Michael Myers. So this film has been extremely divisive with fans, and I want to say I'm not going to discuss the ending. I'm not going to discuss a whole lot of plot points, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the themes they're building towards in this movie, and I think this is what's causing a little bit of the disconnect with some fans. I mean, the film has grossed over $100 million at the time of this review, which is a couple of weeks into its release. It's doing well. Blumhouse has got to be just like, money, 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 money. Thank you, Michael Myers. There seems to be a lot of discussion online, more or less like, this isn't my Michael Myers. This isn't the Halloween that I grew up with. Well, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think that's a little bit not only disingenuous, but I think it's kind of flat out wrong in a lot of ways. So, one quick point. This is a Halloween film box set. When this came out, I believe 4 years ago, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Halloween films. Since then, there's been 2 more. The third is coming next year. So we're going to be up to 13 Halloween films. Now, if you want a little bit of a horror lesson, Halloween 1 came out 1979, 78, in that area. The sequel came out a couple years later, picked up directly after the end of the first movie, and ended that story. They killed Michael Myers in the second Halloween film. They then made a third Halloween film that was about masks that possessed people and did not have Michael Myers in it. They then brought Michael Myers back and kind of completely reinvented the plot in Halloween 4, which has grown on me over the years. Then made Halloween 5, which in my mind is probably one of the weakest in the whole series. Then more or less reinvented it kind of again with part 6, where they were going to introduce this cult that had connected the child Michael Myers to some force. Anyway, then they came back with H2O, which ignored all those films except Halloween 1 and 2. Then they made Resurrected, which was connected to H2O. Then they scrapped all of that, rebooted and remade the franchise with Rob Zombie at the helms for Halloween. Then, after Rob Zombie blew Michael Myers' head off close range with a firearm, they backed a truckload of money up, and he made probably one of my least favorite horror films of all time. And I know there's people that are like, oh, I'm going to defend it till the day I die. Well, I don't care who Rob Zombie is. You make a crap film, you make a crap film. And Halloween 2 was in my opinion, I like saying things are bad, things are good. In my opinion, that was not a good movie. Here we are again. A couple years ago, they decided to bring life back into the franchise. They ignore all the movies again except part 1. When they start again. I think it should be said that Michael Myers in the Halloween franchise holds his place in horror films that a lot of franchises don't. One, they've always tried to stay scary. I mean, we're going towards 13 films in a franchise, and they're still trying to take it seriously. They're trying to make it scary. They're trying to find a way to pay homage to the original, because the original, yes, we love Friday the 13th. Yes, we love Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, whatever these franchise starters you want to bring up. But it doesn't carry the reverence that Halloween does. Halloween is usually in the top 100 films on anybody's list, period. usually on the top 10 horror films of all time, top slasher list. It has this this plateau that it's risen to that very few horror films can reach. And you see that in how vehemently people defend these films or pick and choose which ones they like better. And with this film, like I said, it seems to have divided the fan base in a sense of this isn't our Michael Myers versus other people that are like, oh, I love this. Like, this is kind of where I wanted it to go. I'm in that camp because here's the thing. When you're going towards 13 films in a franchise, it doesn't matter what polish you put on it, you're going to have to start leaning into the fact that this person has supernatural elements. Whether you want to go back to the original with Loomis and talk about how it's not human, it's this dark vessel for darkness, and there's nothing in the eyes of the devil's eyes and all this sort of stuff. It's always needed to go in this direction, that there's some aspect to this character that allows it to survive. Now, granted, you can say, yeah, but those other films don't exist, but they do. I mean, I've seen him shot in both eyes. I've seen him run over. I've seen him hacked, slashed. I've seen him beaten to death with, I think, a lead pipe in part 6 after being drugged with giant horse tranquilizers by Paul Rudd, by the way. Shout out Ant-Man taking on Michael Myers. All of that has happened. Oh, and side note, anybody that says Michael Myers doesn't run, check him down the stairs in part 1. All of that has created this mythos, this connection with horror fans over 4 decades that is still going on. These films are doing so well. And to me, I mean, the last film ends with Michael Myers coming for Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, her daughter and her granddaughter, who are making the final stand against Michael Myers after all these years, who has once again broken out of an insane asylum. I mean, seriously, they need to step up the security in any insane asylum within like a 2-day travel radius of Haddonfield. There should be dogs, taser, I don't know. There just needs more. Robots, whatever you got, throw it at those insane asylums. Haddonfield, please spend your money wisely. They end up having the showdown with him. They leave him in a burning house. He's going to die. What is Michael Myers? A log. And what I like about that is that the first of this trilogy is an end. If you just want to stop there and say, that was pretty cool, I can go Halloween, 2018 Halloween. That's a cool one too for me. You can. However, it moves into this trilogy now. And what I like about the second one is they lean into what Michael Myers is and needed to become, which is something more than just a crazy man. Now he's just bloodthirsty unleashed. He's wiping out a platoon of firefighters. Is it a platoon of firefighters? Squad of firefighters? He's wiping out... Haddonfield's population has dropped by the end of this film. There's some really cool undertones in the film about how the town has been affected by what Michael Myers has done, and now the town is kind of rallying against this. Almost like the essence of what Laurie Strode and Loomis were has now been transfused into this town. You can see how much they know during this film and this new trilogy of films, how they need to connect it to that original film in some way. I mean, every time they try one of these remakes, these new story twists throughout the franchise, they know that they have to connect it to that original in some way. Like if they just move past it completely, fans are going to this, or they're just not sure what to do with the character without it. Either way, this one too, I mean, you have threads with the 2 children that were being babysat in the original film by Laurie Strode, are now grown and ready to take back some of the years they've lost to terror. You have all sorts of other characters from the original mixed in here as well to kind of add some this is the same timeline to the film and kind of invest. And I think some of those little tidbits to fans. There's also a really cool spot. I could be losing it, but I'm pretty sure, I didn't think I see it mentioned anywhere else, but there's a part with the masks from Halloween Part 3 are actually featured in a death scene. I thought that was a really nice touch. There's a couple of cool callbacks out there for people like me that are just Halloween, Michael Myers, and horror geek. Everybody else at the theater is just like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's blood. And me, I'm like, they get me. Myers is an unstoppable force. And one person has never even come close to being enough. He just pops back up. So throw a town at him. Throw people that have lost family members, friends, have been terrorized by decades that now finally get to stand up and say, no, we're not just going solo. We're taking a shot together at this guy. We want to stop this evil. They don't talk about Michael Myers has to die tonight. The whole slogan of this film is, evil dies tonight. that's the essence of this movie. And where I think it's going towards in the third one is this idea that there's this connection between Jamie and Michael that might have a supernatural element to it, that maybe there is some sort of thread, some fate, sister weaving, if you will, between these two. And I know the films have ignored some of the cooler plot points from the other films about how Jamie Lee Curtis ends up, or Laurie Strode ends up being Michael's sister, and that's where this connection comes from. And I like that idea. I like the idea that this heroine is just destined to be in this battle. You know, if you want to take a horror, that would be like Bruce Campbell. Oh yeah, I'm going there, as Ash versus the Evil Dead, where he never wanted that role. He was just this dude that was destined to be this guy, this goofball that ended up being the force for good against the impending unstoppable darkness. And that's kind of what Jamie Lee Curtis is now. There's points in this movie where she kind of is coming to terms with the fact of what she might be and how she's connected to Michael. And I really like that. I love how over the top, violent and gory and crazy this movie is. If you love slashers, this is a gore-tastic time. Popcorn chomping. And listen, anybody who wants to complain that these films aren't scary, I think you need to take a step back, because if you're a real hardcore aficionado, horror films aren't really scary to you anymore. They represent something else. They represent a good time, a feeling you get when you're just like, I had a kill, or like you're hitting your buddy like, oh my god, can you believe that scene? Like, and this film had tons of that. Yeah, those casual people in the audience were jumping and like grabbing each other. But the hardcore guys like me were laughing, throwing popcorns and chuckling with their buddy, and that's what it should be at this point, you know, just a really good time. It's dark, it is intense, and for someone who doesn't watch horror films, this is gonna be terrifying. But for us, it's not going to be. When is the last time, honestly, that a slasher film, even if you loved it, scared you? I mean, the plot's been done a gazillion times. Unstoppable killer, wiping people out, eventually one heroine at the end, the final girl, arguably Laurie Strode's claim to fame as the original, stepping up and somehow finding a way to defeat it until the next film comes out. If you just put Jason in the Woods every 2 years, people are going to go pay to watch that movie, and they're not going to hold it to the standard they do Halloween films. And that says something for the franchise. It says something for Michael Myers. It says something for John Carpenter, quite frankly, with the score and just what he did to bring what is essentially a very simple, almost character non-existent film, and just how that has morphed into this loved piece of horror art by all communities. And people just seem so desperate to hold on to that idea during these other films. And I don't think that's fair. I think at some point you got to turn your brain off and go, Michael Myers at 13 films is drifting into Jason territory. And we have all the other films to revisit. We can go back and pick our favorites. I'm gonna tell you right now, this one could have had like aliens land at the end and start zapping people, and I still would have taken it over Halloween 2, Resurrection, and Part 5. That's just me. So it's already better than like a third of the franchise, all right? If we're being like 100% honest with ourselves. And Part 3 has a lot of love, but doesn't even have Michael in it. So if you're basing a Halloween film, you're going to put that over some of the Michael films, like, I think we got to step back and just enjoy this. And a lot of people do, obviously. I'm just talking to that little contingent that really responded negatively to this. I think you got to be happy that we're still getting films like this, that it's doing well, that there's a casual audience that supports these things, because that's how they continue to get made. Maybe I didn't have enough jokes this round, okay? But I'm really passionate about this horror stuff. I love it. I love Halloween. I love that there's people that are into all kinds of stuff. And you mentioned Halloween, they're like, oh yeah, you know, that was a cool time. Like, there's just I've watched Halloween with new school horror fans that don't watch older films. And even if they talk about, oh, it looks a little old or this or that, they still had a really good time with it. But I think this new trilogy is pretty cool. And honestly, when they're done with the Halloween Ends, the last part, sign me up. Just bring it back. Give me a new Laurie Strode. Give me a new Michael Myers. And just keep doing it. Because why not? Give me another 13 films with a new guy. Give him a whole new story. Maybe go back to that, was it, oh God, I want to say something Thorn or Cult of Thorn Part 6. I honestly can't remember. I refuse to Google it just so I look like I know all that stuff at a moment's notice. It is a good time. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a good popcorn crunching time. My movie score, 7 out of 10. That's where I'm sitting with it. You could argue, maybe a 6.5 because it is, you know, just a straightforward slasher. But considering we're going to this Halloween Ends, which I think is going to be a rather intense, grand, violence-filled, mano-a-mano line-dropping showdown, bring it on. I mean, I'm already signed up. Buying the next shirt too, folks. Hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to contradict me. Man, that's the great thing about horror, right? I love chatting about it, whether we're on the same page or not. Some of my favorite conversations have been me and a good friend debating about if a film is awesome. And recently, myself, I've had that happen. It's a really good time. I just love the passion these films inspire in everybody on either side of the argument. There's not a whole lot of franchises that people care about enough to like or dislike something that much. So it's cool, and it's refreshing in the horror genre, I think, as a whole. So thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'm going to keep at it. I know they're few and far between, but hey, life's going to life. Have a great one out there, guys, and keep enjoying that bloodshed in legal ways.